Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kesme 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. This afternoon, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayine, says he will soon call for a briefing from the Special Prosecutor regarding the cases he's handling. Also coming up on the program, Minister of Defense Dr. Ogbodu reassures Ghanaians of his commitment to supporting government comprehensive roadmap aimed at restoring lasting peace in Boko as the age-old conflict rages on. And much later on the program, as Ghana grapples with a growing cholera outbreak, experts are raising concerns that the situation extends beyond the health ministry's scope. We'll tell you why. Let's start with this. And Attorney General and Minister of Justice Dr. Dominic Ayine says he will soon call for a briefing from the Special Prosecutor after the OSP had declared former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta wanted in relation to 4 cases the office is investigating. Here is Dominic Ayine answering questions on Wednesday.
Regarding the OSP, recall that the OSP law seeks to make the OSP independent of the Attorney General. Now, even though I disagree entirely with it, not because I am now Attorney General and I want powers over the OSP, but if you go back to the Parliamentary Hands Act, when the law was being enacted, I was one of those who argued strongly that that power rightly belongs to the Attorney General under the Constitution. When I was making those arguments, the Honorable Gloria Ekufu was the Attorney General. All right? I wasn't the Attorney General, and I had not dreamt of becoming Attorney General. So I wasn't trying to arrogate to myself any powers then. Okay. However, because the legislative intent is to make the OSP independent of the Attorney General, I am a bit reluctant to interfere in the work of the OSP. However, I think that it is only right that because he's exercising prosecutorial authority, which belongs to me under Article 88(3) of the Constitution, all right, I should be in the know regarding, his actions. So he's one of the agents, OSP is one of the agencies under the Attorney General's Department, and at the appropriate time, I will call for a briefing on everything that he has done, including the press conference that he held, today. I myself, woke up to the press conference. I did not know that he had taken those actions. I'm not blaming him for taking the actions. Until I know the substantive content of the actions he's taking, I cannot, begin to say anything about them.
And you had the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine, during that press conference yesterday. He answering some questions. Put this to some analysis very shortly, because the AG's remark has sparked debate about the independence of the OSP and whether or not the Attorney General can get involved in cases the Special Prosecutor is pursuing. And we'll bring you analysis on that very shortly. Ahead of that, the Minister of Defense, Dr. Ogbodu, has reassured Ghanaians of his commitment to supporting the government's comprehensive roadmap aimed at restoring a lasting peace in Boko in the Upper East region. On Wednesday, February 12, that's yesterday, the Defense Minister, Dr. Edward Ogbodu, took to his official Facebook page to affirm the government's commitment to de-escalating tensions and fostering reconciliation. This was after he met the Interior Minister and members of Parliament in the Boko area. Since last December 2024, tensions have escalated in the Boko area, with attacks which have led to casualties, displacement of residents, and a general state state of fear and insecurity. Remember that President John Mahama on January 14 visited Boko to assess conditions on the ground and engage with local leaders, security personnel, and affected communities. He also visited the Nairi Palace, where he engaged with the king and overlord of the Mamprugu Kingdom, Bohagu Mahami Abdullah Shirga II. And I'll bring you some more on that as well. But let's go to, so we do have on the line with us Emmanuel Coutin. He's Executive Director, Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
I mean, tensions have escalated in Boko over the last few days with tit for tat, as it were, attacks resulting in loss of lives and destruction of properties. This is not new, but this week alone, we've seen a number of buses set ablaze in reprisals. The new government says Boko will be a security priority. Are the authorities walking the talk, especially when that was one of the first things the president talked about after he was sworn in?
I think rightly so. If you look at the steps the defense minister has taken, and you recall Boko was the first place His Excellency John Mahama visited after he was sworn in. I think that government needs to kind of establish a permanent conflict resolution framework. You see, you look at the nature of the Boko conflict, it's quite clinical, you understand? And just temporary peacekeeping measures are not enough, like putting soldiers and to be on the forefront of the fight. That is simply not enough. We need a standing multi-stakeholder council, you understand, with representatives from both the Kusasis and the Mampresi. And we can look at security agencies and sometimes civil society organizations, or if you like, neutral mediators. And this council should have real authority and some kind of resources to address tensions before they escalate into violence. I think the next thing the government needs to do, if it's really interested in resolving the Boko conflict, is to look at the economic dynamics. Because to tackle the economic underpinning of the conflict, young people, because of economic opportunities, they are easily drawn into violence.
Indeed.
So government needs to kind of create some specialized economic zones in Boko that mandate cross-ethnic cooperation. And I think the third and the most important thing they need to do is address the chieftaincy dispute through constitutional means. Government must work with the National House of Chiefs. And it is about time we establish a clear and legally binding protocols for traditional leadership successions in Boko. But you realize one important thing the defense minister did, I don't agree with him. He has to shy away from social media. I know he's technologically savvy, but the position he occupies, and given the sensitive nature of the Boko conflict, I think he must shy away by putting information on his social media handles. Anybody can hack his, and put something there, and it will be very difficult to counter him. Because we often overlook aspects that deserve immediate attention. Because modern technology and social media is either escalating or preventing conflicts in Boko. And the key thing is that we are seeing how misinformation and inflammation messages can spread rapidly through WhatsApp and other social media platforms.
So he should refrain from his social media pages.
The minister himself is making use of such platforms. I don't think is the good way to go.
Let me ask you this.
However, there's a remedy, you understand. The new government can consider establishing a very dedicated digital monitoring and rapid response unit, specifically for conflict-prone areas, not necessarily Boko, because Boko is not the only conflict we have in the country.
I'm sorry, you're running out of time. Let me ask you this question before you go, please. We've had solutions, Prophet, as it were. I know you've talked about the economic dynamics, but in the meantime, or in the short term, what can be done to at least bring tensions down?
I think they need to do stakeholder engagement. And I'm aware he met some MPs from the area, and that is a good start. The MPs must put their political interests behind and look at Boku as a place that can be a Waterloo in the country's fight against terrorism and the innocent lives that are lost every day. It doesn't serve anybody's interest. And from the stakeholder engagement, I think he will be better informed to set up some tripartite committees that can listen to both sides. And I've repeated this advice over and over again.
Indeed. We'll have to end it here. Emmanuel Kutin, Executive Director, Africa Center for Security and Counterterrorism. Some 11 minutes past the hour of 12. You're still here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. When we come back, we'll tell you the unfortunate incident that has happened in the northern part of the country as well. Some 9 people reported dead. Stay with us.
Whether it's Bimbilla, Winchi, Akachi, Accra, or Takrady, as long as it's on Ghana's map, we're there. With our network of healthcare service providers across the entire country, wherever you find yourself in Ghana, Nationwide Medical Insurance has got you covered. We are nationwide, literally. Your health is worth protecting. Call us on 0800 222222 or visit www.nationwidemh.com. Nationwide Medical Insurance. Join the healthcare family.
And you're still here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. Now, 9 people have lost their lives and 15 others reported to be in critical condition following a head-on collision involving a Sprinter vehicle and a Kia Renault truck near Wale Wale in the northeast region. While the exact cause of the accident is still under investigation, eyewitnesses suggest that a trailer parked dangerously close to the road may have contributed to the accident. Emergency services rushed to the scene where they found 9 individuals confirmed dead and sent 15 others to the Wale Wale Municipal Hospital. Very shortly, we'll be crossing over to our correspondent who's been picking information on this very incident for us. And you're still here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. I was telling you about that remark from the Attorney General during his press conference yesterday, where he said that he was going to have a conversation with the special prosecutor on the way forward as regards cases that are currently before him. Let's speak to Christian Mamhesi, his private legal practitioner, for his thoughts on this. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
So I'm sure yesterday you monitored the press conference of the Attorney General, but the law setting up the OSP, among others, explicitly states, and I want to quote that to you, except as otherwise provided in the Constitution, the office is not subject to the direction or control of a person or an authority in the performance of the functions of the office. Yet we heard the AG say that he intends to engage the OSP. This has generated conversation about likely interference by the Attorney General, of course, a political appointee. What really is the position of the law on this matter, based on your own interpretation?
Okay, all right. So when it comes to interpretation, we do what we call purposive interpretation.
So perhaps your understanding of it? Because the courts are supposed to interpret the law, yes.
Purposive interpretation is subject to Section 10 of the Interpretation Act. If you are interpreting statutes and documents just by what you read, we will not limit ourselves to that. But if you look at the mandate of the office, if you further go to Section 2 and 3, which further says that subject to Clause 4 of Article 88 of the Constitution, that's the 1992 Constitution, the office shall, for the purpose of the Act, be authorized by the Attorney General to initiate and conduct the prosecution of corruption and corruption-related offences. 3. Subsection 2 shall not preclude Parliament in the public interest from requesting the office to investigate alleged or suspected cases of corruption or corruption-related offences involving public officers, politically exposed persons, or persons in the private setting. Now, just bear with me to further read to you Article 88.4, which says that all offences prosecuted in the name of the Republic of Ghana shall be at the suit of the Attorney General or any other person authorized by him in accordance with any law. So, if you read all of them purposively, by just not taking out just a section, which we don't do in interpretation, you realize that the relationship between the OSP and Attorney General is one of collaboration. And by that, even though the law indicates that, expressly so called, that the OSP is not subject to the direction and control of third-party institutions, it stands to say that the OSP, at certain degree in law, still reverts to the Attorney General in respect to some of his duties, as I have just read. So, simplicity, the OSP is not solely independent on its own, per the provisions as read to you, because Parliament can even, in the interest of or by public interest, direct OSP to carry out certain investigations. But what it must be said is that in carrying out those investigations, it is not subject to external interference. So the latter I place more emphasis on.
So let me find out from you, with the AG kind of extending invitation or indicating that he's going to have a meeting with the special prosecutor, what kind of interactions would you expect him to have with him, looking at the limitations, as it were, already set in place by the law?
Yes, so just I predicated my submission with, it is one of collaboration. It is one of learned colleagues sharing notes on corrupt and corrupt-related matters, and seeing, or they would foresee or prepare legally on how they will proceed in their respective office, or how both of them could collaborate to fight corruption and corruption-related matters.
Wendell here, thank you so much for speaking to us. Question, Mom Hersey, he's a private legal practitioner. Let's bring in some health issues now. And the government says that it will review all the Agenda 111 project and decide on what next. The project started by the previous government to bridge the infrastructural deficit within the health sector was stalled prior to the general elections. Now, the sector minister, Dr. Kwabena Minta Akando, says it will cost the government about $1.4 billion to complete all the projects. Listen.
President Ogbodu Adu on August 17, 2021, launched the Agenda 111 Hospital Project. The project covers the construction of 101 district hospitals and 6 regional hospitals in the newly created 6 regions. It also includes the construction of 2 psychiatric hospitals in Kumasi and Tamale, the redevelopment of the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, and the construction of the Western Regional Hospital. The projects were scheduled to be completed within 18 months as a lesson learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the projects have not been completed and handed over, though many of them are at various stages of completion. Will the current administration complete all the projects left by the previous administration?
I will hasten slowly to say all other projects will be continued. For example, I'll give you an example. You have started about 101 hospitals for the past, let's say, 4 years. None has been completed. Not a single one has been completed. You need not less than $1.4 billion to be able to complete these projects. Okay? You have spent about more than $400 million. You haven't completed even one. Even per the budget of the Agenda 111, okay, which I think one is around 18 million US dollars. The 400 million could have even completed more than 20.
According to the Health Minister, Kwabena Minta Akando, further engagements will take place for a review in consultation with the President for the next course of action.
You have to think through, review the whole system again, know the levels of completion, know which area needs what urgently. If there is a catchment area where there is no health facility at all, are we going to consider those areas first? What's the level of completion there? How much do we have or how much do we need? Such projects, you must have dedicated sources of funding. I have to take my time, we review all these things, think through it, discuss with Mr. President how we can embark on all these projects. Why not? Our main target is to have accessible, quality, and affordable healthcare for the people of this country.
And you heard the Health Minister, Kwabena Minta Akando, ending that report filed by Sarah Aprinkro of our Health Desk. Now, as Ghana grapples with the growing cholera outbreak, experts are raising concerns that the situation extends beyond the Health Ministry's scope. The call comes as the cholera outbreak continues to spread across various parts of the country. The death toll has risen and hundreds of suspected cases have been reported in affected communities. In the Ofutu municipality of the Central Region, for instance, the death toll from cholera has risen to 3, with 400 suspected cases. Meanwhile, the Ghana Health Service is set to embark on a mass cholera vaccination from tomorrow, Friday, February 14, to Monday, the 17th of February 2025. Well, about 300,000 persons 1 year and above have been earmarked to receive vaccine doses. Now, the exercise, which will take place in 3 sub-metros of Accra, Ablekuma South, Okaikwe South, and Ashedu Keteke, are set to happen soon. Well, let's speak to the Yao Ahin. He's water, sanitation, and hygiene technical specialist at World Vision Ghana. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. The name is Yao Ahin.
Yao Ata Ahin, thank you. So we left the Ata out. Well, you've emphasized the need for a broader government response to the cholera outbreak. Are you able to tell us more about the role of the local government ministry, for instance, in dealing with this problem at the local level?
Yes, good afternoon to our listeners. Precisely, that is exactly what you said. You see, we usually reduce cholera outbreaks and any such preventable diseases to health. It's not just a health issue. I mean, we can't wait till people get so sick and then we begin to apply vaccination. Cholera is a preventable disease which can be addressed by the simple solution of improved sanitation, hygiene, and safe drinking water. Once you have this, I can tell you that there's no way cholera will thrive because it's a product of poor sanitation and contaminated water. I mean, in a country where we have 17.7% open defecation rate, and when we say 17.7%, that is the national average. All the 5 northern regions of Ghana have open defecation rates above 50%. Upper East has 68.4. Savannah has 68.5. Even in Greater Accra, where we have the lowest open defecation rate, we realize that some of the districts have much higher rates. And so it's important that, first of all, we end open defecation. And then we take steps to ensure that every household has access to a toilet facility.
And it's obvious that these two suggestions would be from the medium to long term, because you need to educate people on why there's no need.
Definitely.
But in the meantime, when they are trying to deal or curb the spread, what do you suggest could be done?
Yes, of course. In the meantime, you know, definitely we have to end open defecation. People will have to eat food that is hot and ensure that there is distancing and all that. But I don't believe in short-term measures. I am saying that going forward, if we don't want to continue to have this conversation of cholera every year, then we need to prioritize access to water and sanitation.
We'll have to end it here. Thank you very much, Yao Atahin, Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Technical Specialist at World Vision Ghana. 25 minutes past the hour of 12. When we come back, we'll tell you what the Minister for Agriculture is saying.
Whether it's Bimbilla, Winchi, Akachi, Accra, or Takrady, as long as it's on Ghana's map, we're there. With our network of healthcare service providers across the entire country, wherever you find yourself in Ghana, Nationwide Medical Insurance has got you covered. We are nationwide, literally. Your health is worth protecting. Call us on 0800 222222 or visit www.nationwidemh.com. Nationwide Medical Insurance. Join the healthcare family.
Now, before we go, 8 persons have been selected as beneficiaries to start the phase 1 of the government initiative, Irrigation for Wealth Creation, for the next 1 year. Regional ministers of the regions, namely Volta, Uti, Central, Northeast, Northern, Savannah, Upper West and Upper East, have been tasked to lead the initiative with subsequent engagement with stakeholders in the areas for a smooth implementation. Food and Agric Minister Eric Opoku, at a meeting with some selected regional ministers to make the announcement, said that 10,000 hectares of land would be needed under the phase 1 of the project. Listen.
But for you to have a fair understanding of what we intend to do, Ghana is endowed with an irrigable land estimated at 1.9 million hectares. Unfortunately, only 1.6% is under irrigation as we speak. This is far below the West and Central Africa average of 13.9%. So in the West Africa, the average irrigation is 13.9%, and Ghana is doing 1.6%. This underscores the need for urgent interventions to ensure that we can do all year-round production. We should not lose sight of the fact that we have also promised to do the 24-hour economy, and we want agriculture to produce the raw materials to feed the industry. If industry can run for 24 hours, they will need raw materials to be able to do so. And it is the agriculture that will provide the raw materials. So agriculture should be positioned to be able to produce from January to December throughout the year, so that if the industries are taking raw materials from them, there wouldn't be any form of disruption in the production process. It is against this background that we are launching this big, all-important program. And we expect every one of us to take this one seriously, because it is very dear to the heart of Mr. President. And he has instructed that this program be executed within a space of 12 months. But before we proceed with the discussions, we want the partners to do a small presentation on the screens so the media can come.
And you just heard right there the Minister for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku. Let's go to Parliament very quickly, where the minority is having a press conference.
That Mr. Oforiatta was out of the country seeking medical attention, having informed both the former and current Chief of Staff about his whereabouts. Yet they proceeded with this reckless display of power, exposing their deep-seated desire to harass and humiliate political opponents under the guise of security operations. Video footage from Mr. Oforiatta's residence shows one Richard Japa, a known NDC activist, recently tried in the ambulance purchase scandal, leading the raid conducted without a warrant or in accordance with the law. The reckless abuse of power executed under full military backing signal a disturbing shift towards authoritarian governance, where brute force is now replacing the process and replacing due process, and political witch hunts are being disguised as security operations. It is nothing short of a state-orchestrated assault on individual freedoms and an alarming escalation in the abuse of powers. Similarly, on Monday, 3rd February 2025, the residence of Lord Comey, former Director of Operations at the Jubilee House, was raided with his vehicle unlawfully seized. Former Minister of Defense, Honorable Dominic Nitiwo, was also targeted as security operatives chased him down and forcibly took possession of his vehicle while it was at a workshop. For such incidents to occur under a government that once vehemently condemned the use of military force in political matters or for political ends is not only the height of hypocrisy, but also a shameful betrayal of democratic principles. The very leaders who cried foul over what they claim to be military intimidation while in opposition are now wielding state power in an even more reckless and tyrannical manner. This is not governance. It is a hostile takeover, reminiscent of regimes that thrive on suppression, intimidation, and fear. Today, February 12, yesterday, February 12, 2025, the OSP, subsequent to the raid, has also, without recourse to law and due process, announced at a press conference that he considers Mr. Oforiatta a suspect and a fugitive. This is shocking. When no charges have even been proffered against the former finance minister. Another matter that demands the attention of the public is the glaring bias and selective justice being exhibited by state security agencies in the administration of their duties. The National Intelligence Bureau, the NIB, on Monday, 10th February 2025, wasted no time in summoning the Minority Chief Whip, Honorable Frank Anodombre, for questioning over comments he made concerning the disputed Ablekuma North parliamentary elections results. His words urging MPP supporters to protect their own were swiftly deemed insightful and required interrogation at the highest level of the security apparatus. Yet, when Mustafa Bande, the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC and Deputy Director of Operations in the Presidency, openly declared on live television on Friday, 7th February 2025, that the NDC would sacrifice the minority leader, Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin, the NIB found no cause for alarm and did not summon him for questioning. Neither did they demand an explanation for such utterances. The NIB did not also find it necessary to investigate what was an explicit and direct threat to the life of Honorable Afenyo-Markin and a deliberate attempt to incite violence against him. Mr. Gbande's comments were dangerous and a criminal incitement to harm the minority leader. It was a direct attack on his safety and an assault on the very principles of democracy and the rule of law. This glaring double standard exposes the dangerous path this country is heading down. One where justice is no longer blind, but selectively wielded against political opponents. If the NIB is truly committed to upholding law and order, it must explain why the minority chief whip was swiftly summoned for interrogation over his comments, while the Deputy Director of Operations at the presidency, who openly threatened the minority leader's life, was allowed to walk free without consequences. This double standard raises serious concerns about the selective application of justice and the use of state institutions to police certain political figures while others are allowed to act with impunity. If public remarks are to be scrutinized, all individuals, regardless of political affiliation, must be held to the same standard. The silence over Gbande's threats, while Honorable Arnaud Dampre is subjected to interrogation, suggests a politicization of security agencies and a dangerous precedent where loyalty rather than the rule of law dictates accountability. We will not remain silent while political persecution takes root in Ghana. This country belongs to all of us, and no administration has the right to weaponize state institutions against its political opponents. We demand an immediate, transparent, and independent investigation into these politically motivated attacks and insist that those responsible be held accountable. The harassment of former government officials must cease immediately, and due process must be followed in all legal matters. The use of security forces for political vendettas points to a dangerous descent into lawlessness, one where due process is cast aside and state institutions are weaponized or harass or silence perceived opponents. This undermines our institutions and erodes public confidence in governance. As such, the government must demonstrate political maturity and tolerance by fostering an environment where opposition voices are respected rather than suppressed through intimidation and coercion. No democracy can survive when its institutions become weapons for political vengeance. No citizen, no matter how highly placed, is saved when due process is replaced with brute force. If we allow this lawlessness to continue unchecked, tomorrow it will not just be politicians who are targeted, but ordinary Ghanaians who hold dissenting views. We call on all democracy-loving Ghanaians, civil society organizations, religious groups, traditional authorities, and the international community to take note of these dangerous developments and to stand with us in rejecting this wave of political persecutions. If unchecked, these abuses will set Ghana back decades and erode the democratic gains we have made. The government must be reminded that power is transient and history will not judge kindly those who turn state institutions into instruments of oppression. The path this government is taking is a dangerous one. We will not allow tyranny to replace democracy, and we will continue to champion justice, fairness, and democratic governance. We in the minority demand that if the government is claiming no knowledge of such actions, then we demand from the government that all those responsible for these actions must be arrested and prosecuted immediately. God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you.
The Deputy Minority Leader there, Beatrice Adu, ending that press conference called some minutes ago, responding to a number of issues. Of course, bring us this extended version of the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7. If you're just joining us, let me run you through exactly what Madam Adu said from the beginning of that press conference as we picked. She talked about the press conference that was held by the Special Prosecutor Kisia Jabing yesterday, declaring former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta as a wanted fugitive. The minority thinks that that press conference, together with some other actions and inactions of the government, indicates that there is a political witch hunt in the country, and also because the houses of Ken Ofori-Atta as well as some other prominent members of the then administration were raided. The minority sees all these as political witch hunt covered as security operations. So she talked about Lord Come's residence, which was raided, Dominic Nitiwu's former defense minister's residence raided, and called these as shameful betrayal of our democratic practices, and that the NDC is having a hostile takeover of governance. The OSP without cause, as in the special prosecutor in that press conference yesterday, without recourse to law and processes, due process, declared Ken Ofori-Atta as wanted fugitive, and described that action by the SP yesterday as shocking. Also went on to talk about bias displayed by state agencies and gave examples of how when Anodompe made a statement, he was immediately invited by top security agencies, and yet Mustafa Gbande, who is Deputy General Secretary of the governing party, made similar statements which the minority describes as dangerous and assault on democratic principles, yet not been invited. Talked about double standards. In summary, the minority is not going to sit down whilst, quote unquote, the government uses state agencies to attack opponents, and is demanding independent probe and prosecution of all those involved in the attack of former government officials, calling on international community as well as traditional leaders and all lovers of democracy to come in before this extends to ordinary Ghanaians. And so that was that press conference there, held by the Deputy Minority Leader, surrounded by minority members as well, declaring war on what the minority describes as the misuse of state agencies as weapons of political witch hunt against former government officials. That will be it for the extended version of the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you so much for joining us. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Coming up shortly is Business Daily. Michael Ogbodu is standing by with details.
democracy on this frequency. 92.7 3 FM.
And hello there, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7 with me, Michael Ogbodu. Coming up, World Bank blames Ghana's economic crisis and the former President Akufo Addo's administration on fiscal indiscipline, costly debt and weak revenue mobilization. We'll bring you the details. Meanwhile, the World Bank warns Ghana against premature return to international capital markets, citing risk to debt recovery gains, and the government to foster investor-friendly environment to boost industrialization and promote 24-hour economy agenda. We hear from the Chief Executive of the Ghana Free Zones Authority, Dr. Mary Ewusi. Thank you so much for your time. Straight into our top story. The World Bank has attributed Ghana's 2022 economic crisis to weak fiscal discipline, costly financial and energy sector liabilities, and an over-reliance on external commercial debt. In its latest Ghana Public Finance Review, the Bretton Woods institution highlights unsustainable debt accumulation and declining tax revenues as key factors that push the country into distress.
The World Bank says Ghana's lack of fiscal discipline and costly response to global shocks plunged the country into a full-blown economic crisis in 2022. In its latest Ghana Public Finance Review, the institution pointed to weak budgetary institutions, high fiscal liabilities from the financial and energy sectors, and declining tax revenue as major contributors. The report also noted that heavy reliance on external commercial debt left Ghana vulnerable to global shocks, while a costly financial sector cleanup and ongoing losses in the energy sector worsened the country's fiscal pressures. Despite some progress in economic stabilization, the World Bank says more needs to be done to meet fiscal targets. It recommends stronger domestic revenue mobilization to create the needed fiscal space for Ghana's development priorities.
That was a 3 Business News Desk report. Meanwhile, the World Bank's country director for Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, Robert Taliasio, has cautioned Ghana against pushing Russian back to international capital markets, warning that such a move could be premature and risky. He argues that an early return may send the wrong signals to investors, potentially reversing gains made under Ghana's debt restructuring efforts and exposing the country to unsustainable borrowing costs. His warning comes after Ghana successfully restructured its domestic and external debts, securing significant relief under the $3 billion IMF Extended Credit Facility program. Now, away from that, Chief Executive of the Ghana Free Zones Authority, Dr. Mary Ewusi, has assured that the Mahama government will create a more investor-friendly environment, promoting enhanced operational efficiencies, regular stakeholder engagement, improved security and infrastructure, and a positive workplace culture. This move aims to enhance Ghana's industrialization drive. Speaking at the Tema Enclave, as part of her familiarization tour, Dr. Ewusi emphasized the crucial role of the Free Zone Authority in promoting the government's 24-hour economy agenda and called for the support and collaboration of management and staff.
My vision for the authority aligns with the broader goal of positioning Ghana as a globally competitive industrial and trade hub. His Excellency, the President of Ghana, John Dramani Mohammed's vision of a 24-hour economy speaks directly to the work we do here as an authority. That is creating an environment where businesses can thrive, operate efficiently, and contribute significantly to Ghana's economic growth. In order to achieve this, we must prioritize efficiency, innovation, and collaboration. The Tema Administrative Office plays a vital role in ensuring that our free zone enterprises
air tenants operate similarly.
So that was the Chief Executive of the Ghana Free Zones Authority, Dr. Mary Owusi. Now, President John Mahama has reassigned the former Member of Parliament for Bongo, Edward Bawa, as the Group Chief Executive Officer of GOIL. Under his new appointment, Edward Bawa was the acting CEO of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, appointed effective January 17, 2025. His new appointment as GOIL Group CEO takes effect immediately. Edward Bauer holds a Bachelor of Education in Chemistry from the University of Cape Coast and a Master of Business Administration in Business Finance from the University of Liverpool, and previously served as the Head of Communication for the World Bank's Oil and Gas Capacity Building Project. Now, away from that, the Ghana Chamber of Mines says Ghana's ambition to become the leading hub for mine support service in West Africa will require deliberate industrial policy backed by strong interministerial collaboration. This was highlighted at a validation workshop focused on strategies to position Ghana as a dominant player in the mining support services industry. The report, developed in partnership with the Africa Center for Energy Policy (ACEP), outlines key policy recommendations aimed at enhancing Ghana's competitiveness in the regional mining landscape. Let's now listen to Policy Lead for Climate Change and Energy Transition at ACEP, Dr. Charles Jemfi Ofori.
I think that the biggest thing is really to drive an industrial policy that we can leverage this on. As I mentioned, the mining support services sector is broad. It can't be the role of the the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources alone. It can't be the job of the Minerals Commission alone. The trade should be involved, finance should be involved, foreign affairs should be involved, especially when it comes to, strengthening our regional integration frameworks. We talk about value addition, we talk about AFTA. The question is, how can we leverage AFTA to expand the scope to the mining sector? This is very important for us to do. How can we ensure that we harmonize, policies across the region? That is something that foreign affairs should be looking at. So you see that all these roles are interlinked, and it cannot be the responsibility of just the mining focused, sectors alone. This is something that we should all do.
And that was Dr. Charles Jemfi Ofori. He is the Policy Lead for Climate Change and Energy Transition at the Africa Center for Energy Policy (ACEP), bringing an end to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, our website 3news.com/business is there for you. I am Michael Ogbodu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next is Urban Blend. Black Rasta is on standby. Stay tuned.